Hello and welcome to Law Kanya. In today's video, we will be discussing about the most important judgments regarding international law, and these cases I will be discussing the subject matter, the brief fact regarding the case, issues involved, and the judgment given by the court. So the first case is the case of SS Lotus, which was between France and Turkey. This was the case of 1927. Now, the subject matter of the case is about the criminal jurisdiction. So here the main issue that was that whether Turkey could exercise its jurisdiction over French national under international law or not. So, let me give you a brief fact about the case. What happened in 1925 is that the Turkish economy started getting liberalized and it started to expand the trade abroad with other countries. Since most of the trade takes place by ships, one day a French vessel named SS Lotus, while proceeding to Constantinople, collided with a Turkish ship named SS Bose Court at the coast of Turkey. Now, basically, this was a case between two ships colliding with each other. Now, what happened in this is that an accident took place wherein the Turkish ship suffered significant damage and even killed 8 Turkish nationals on board of Turkish vessel. The Turkish government then initiated a criminal proceeding against the officer of the French vessel who was at that time in the vessel that was on board. So, by charging him with the offense of manslaughter and who was subsequently sentenced to imprisonment and fine. The French government, on the other hand, demanded the release of the French vessel officer and the transfer of this case to French court. Now, the conflict was between Turkey and France here, and they both decided and agreed to revert the dispute between the Permanent Court of International Justice. So, the court made the issue as clear that whether Turkish was liable for violation of international law while exercising jurisdiction over an offense committed outside Turkey, because that was not in Turkey, it was an international place, that is a water body, and outside Turkey by a French national. So, the judgment given by the Permanent Court of Justice here was that Turkey did not violate any principle of international law by initiating proceedings against French officer, because this case is a very significant as it laid down two important principles of jurisdiction. The first one is that a state cannot exercise its jurisdiction outside its territory unless an international treaty or customary law permits it to do so. And secondly, within its territory, a state may exercise its jurisdiction in any matter, even if no specific rule of international law is permitting it to do so. Now, in this particular cases, states have wide measures of discretion which is only limited by the prohibited use of international law. So here, Turkey was correct in its approach. Now, the next case is of Luther versus Sager. Here, the case was between United Kingdom only, and the case is of 1921. The subject matter of the case relates to that no distinction between de facto and de jure recognition for the purpose of giving effect to internal acts of a recognized authority has been provided for. The brief facts of the case is such that Luther, who was a British citizen, used to run a timber industry in Soviet Russia when Russia was known as USSR. So, in 1970, Russia became a communist country and it started nationalizing timbers and other industry. As a result of this, Luther, who was the British citizen, he left Russia and went back to UK. He, in 1920, the defendant, that was another person, a third person, Mr. Sagar, came to an agreement with Russian nationalized business company to buy timber. The company sent timbers, but when it reached UK, Luther claimed that those timbers were his property and pointed that as UK never recognized the government of Russia, it wrongfully took over his factory and therefore the court of UK cannot validate the rule of Russian law. So from here we can point out some of the issues. The first being that whether Russia was recognized by Britain or not, and whether the nationalization of timber and other industries was legal or valid. So the court, when it was in the matter was in Britain, the lower court held that the judgment in favor of plaintiff was given, and considering his argument of non-recognition. So being aggrieved, the defendant sought to appeal the judgment to Higher Court of Britain. In appeal, the court found that Britain provided a de facto recognition to Russia in 1921, and as a result, it held that judgment in the favor of defendant, that is, the United Kingdoms. Also, it was observed that British government recognized the Russian government, and a retrospective effect will be applicable in case of such recognition, because here the act, that is the supply of timber and all those, took place before 1921, and British government gave their recognition to Russia only in the year 1921, and this being the retrospective effect, all the acts done prior to the recognition would also be given validity by way of this retrospective effect. Now moving on to the third important case is of North Sea Continental Shelf case in the year 1969. Now here the subject matter of the case relates to equidistance principle, or drawing a line each point of which is equally distant from each shore, meaning that two countries are there and between a sea or an ocean is there. Now which point will be of which countries will be divided by between them in equal proportion, that is the principle of equidistance. Now for identifying delimitation of the areas, a customary international law should be binding on all states. Now the facts of the case include that here the agreement was between Denmark, Germany and Netherlands pertaining to the delimitation of areas of the continental shelf in North Sea. Now, as per the Geneva Convention, we know that if delimitation has been determined by the equidistance rule or the equal distance rule, Germany would have received a smaller portion of North Sea continental shelf, as Germany had concave coastline structure and other two had convex coastline structure, and therefore it refused to follow such rule. Now what happened that these three countries decided to submit the matter before International Court of Justice. In the court, Germany argued that in order to determine the shares of land, the length of coastline must be regarded. However, the other two countries, that is the Denmark and Netherlands, argued that to settle the dispute by equidistance rule, by invoking the fact that they had been ratified by the Geneva Convention itself. And as per Article 6 of the Convention, in the absence of any agreement, the boundary shall be determined by the application of the principle of equidistance. But since Germany had not ratified the convention, it denied its obligatory character and it was only a signatory to the Geneva Conventions. From this, we can conclude two major issues. The first being that whether Article 6 of the Geneva Convention on continental shelf is binding on Germany or not, and the second being that whether the principle of equidistance has attained customary international law status since the adoption of Continental Shelf Convention, and is Germany bound by it? Now, to answer both these questions, the court ruled that the use of equidistance principle of delimitation did not enforce an obligatory nature on the parties by way of either treaty law or customary practice. Thus, equidistance method had not formed into a customary law. The court also held that the delimitation has to be effected by agreement in accordance with equitable principles after taking into consideration all relevant conditions. The court also laid down a very important principles according to which a treaty should be of norm creating characteristic so as to be capable of maturing into a general rule of law. So the matter here, that is the division of North Sea continental shelf, has been left to the parties, that is Germany, Denmark. The next important case is of Anglo-Norwegian fisheries case. Subject matter of this case relates to the right of prescription. Now, what is prescription is that a country cannot be deprived of its right of prescriptions after it has been used for a long period of time continuously without any interruption. As we have also seen in the Transfer of Property Act, there is a rule for prescriptions. Now, the brief fact of the case here is that a customary law or a rule which was followed by Norway and United Kingdom for about 300 years from 1960 to 1906. Now, this rule was of that none of UK's fishermen or agency of organization was allowed to enter the coastline of Norway, which was said to be 10 miles from the coast of Norway. The British had been following this rule since the very inception, but conflict started in 1911 when a ship went deep into the boundaries of Norway coastline for fishing. Now, Norway government then seized the ship and arrested all the people. A similar incident also happened in the year of 1948. Now, being aggrieved, the UK government here approached the International Court of Justice and claimed that to reduce the limits of coastline boundary of Norway from 10 miles to only 4 miles. Now, this proposed alteration was so huge that if it was executed, the coastline water levels of Norway would become very shallow and would have been very difficult for fishing in Norway. The UK government also sought to claim compensation from the government of Norway for the seizure of fishing ship. So, from above, we can conclude that the issue here is that whether the law adopted by Norway for limiting its territory was violative of international law and whether the limits of this zone was illegal. Now, to answer this question, the court held that both the states, that is the UK and Norway, had been following this customary law for a very long period of time, and no objection was raised by British government within all these years before, and they accepted the rule and followed it too. But only in 17th century the British government ceased to interfere with territorial jurisdiction of Norway when complaints were made by them. This shows an implied consent towards the decree of Norway. Therefore, it will be impartial and unjustified to ask the country to delimit its jurisdiction to 4 miles instead of 10 after 300 years of its rule over it. The court ruled that Norway, by limitations of fishery zones, had not contravened any international law, and monopoly for the fishing is definite territorial waters is not illegal. So the limitation for fishery zones in Norway stood as it was before the case. Now, the fifth and the last important case for today's discussion is the right of passage case. This case was between Portugal and India in the year of 1960. Now, what happened here was that during British reign, entire India was ruled by British. Goa, Daman and Diu were ruled by Portugal since 1843. Now, during British reign, Portugal enjoyed the right of passage for Dadra and Nagar Haveli through British Indian territories. Now, this Portugal possession in India included two enclaves of Dadra and of Nagar Haveli, which in somewhat mid 1954 had passed under an autonomous local administration. Some events took place in Dadra in 1954, which resulted in the overthrow of Portuguese authority, which created tension in surrounding Indian territory. Now, looking at these tensions, the Indian government suspended all the passage, and Portugal claimed that it had a right of passage to those enclaves, and between one of these and to other extent was necessary for the exercise of its sovereignty and subject to the regulation and control of India. Portugal also claimed that in contravention to the practice previously followed, India had prevented it from exercising that right, and that situation should be redressed. Now, main issues here was that whether there exists a local custom and does Portugal have the right to passage over Indian territory? And the second important question here is whether the right to passage of military person possesses a similar right of passage over the territory of India as that of private individuals and goods. Now, to answer these questions, the ICJ held that even during the British and post-British periods, the private persons, even civil officials and general goods had been permitted to follow a uniform practice, that is, to allow free passage of people between Daman and these enclaves. Court observed that it has absolute evidence of the prevalence of these customary practices, and it has been consistently followed over a century without any changes even in the post-Indian independence era. Court opined that there exists a correlative obligation and therefore Portugal has the right of passage over Indian territory between coastal Daman and its enclaves in relation to private persons, civil officials, and general goods, subjected to control of India and confined to the extent which is necessary by Portugal to exercise its sovereignty and the powers of enclaves. Thus, in overall, we can say that Portugal had a customary right to passage over Indian territory, that is from Daman and its enclaves, but subjected to control of India, and which is extended or confined to the area that is only the necessity or the importance of Portugal. However, the court was also of the view that there exists no right in favor of Portuguese regarding a mutual obligation on India in relation to armed forces, armed police, and arms and ammunitions, since there existed no such right between Portuguese and British authorities during British reign. To conclude, we can say that Portuguese could come to India and do its business, but Indians were not allowed in the Portuguese land during that time. So these were the 5 important cases that we have taken up today. In the next video or the part 2, we will discuss another important cases related to international law. Till then, subscribe to my channel and do share as much as you can. Thank you for watching.